No one's asking you to be sorry for being white or straight, but thanks for clicking on the video anyway.
Thank you for your contribution.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
A couple of weeks ago, we critiqued Tim Pool. And last week, we dropped the clip, and his fans were not happy, to put it lightly. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to address some of those critiques. First, though, let's quickly review his bad take about unions and our argument for why his take is bad. To set the clip up, Ben Burgess is making the point that if you care about free speech, you should be incredibly in favor of unions. Why? Because if you and your coworkers are not unionized, if you have not used your leverage to secure a contract, you are an at-will employee, meaning your boss can fire you for any reason or no reason at all, including because they don't like your speech, and they often do. Workplaces are where people spend most of their waking lives, and yet we are less free than anywhere. We are less free in the places that we spend most of our waking lives than we are anywhere else. So one of the first things that workers will do when they unionize is fight for a clause in their contract that lays out a process for just cause and progressive discipline and termination, meaning you have due process. If your boss wants to terminate you or discipline you, it has to be related to your performance, not because your boss is having a bad day. And that's clearly a win for free speech, because the biggest threat to free speech in this country that most people have, generally speaking, does not come from the government, at least not at this moment, and nor does it come from what's happening on Facebook and Twitter. And this is not to discount those things, right? And I think I tend to have a certain amount of sympathy, like we were talking about, to some of these civil libertarian positions about free speech. I tend to be a bit open to that, and a bit more open maybe about what we should allow on platforms than some other people. And I think that the control, and I think this is something that a lot of people will agree with, the control that these private and unaccountable corporations have over what has become de facto the public square is bad. And I think that there are certainly conversations to be had about that, and there are serious conversations, and I'm not discounting those in any way. But getting banned on Twitter is simply, factually, as a fact of the matter, in reality, it is not the biggest threat that a working person has to their ability to speak freely. It's simply not. What is it? It is getting fired, getting a demotion, getting their hours cut, facing retaliation on the job. These are the things that materially affect working people, that affect their very ability to eat and survive, and it happens every single day. Which is why workers organizing is such a big deal if you genuinely care about the ability of regular working people to speak freely. If that's what you want, then you want to be able to insulate working people from the tyranny that the boss has over what they can say at and outside of work. But Tim disagreed with that. So let's see why.
Have you ever been in a union? Just side question.
Yeah.
Which one? When?
I was in a couple. I've been in the.
Which one?
I've been in the UFCW, and when I was working at Meyer in Michigan, and
accepted. I didn't believe you. I couldn't imagine, based on what you'd said, that'd been true. Because I've been in two unions. I was in the Transport Workers Union, and I worked at a grocery store as well, which also had a grocery workers union, and they were so corrupt that I was like, the statement you made is just like your perspective I can respect that's coming from you, but it's like a blanket subjective perspective. But I don't want to.
Not at all subjective.
I don't want to have an argument about union.
However corrupt that union might have been that you were part of,
two of them.
If you had been accused of an infraction subject to disciplinary process, then you would have had the option of having them represent you in that process.
Wrong.
Okay.
Bro. So I don't want to get into an argument about unions, other than to say, like, your subjective perspective.
It's not subjective. It's a fact that the effect of unions is to give you due process.
And sometimes they don't, because humans are fallible. But I digress.
Okay, but you can say the same thing about having trial by jury, that like sometimes it's not a good due process.
So the issue is...
Still a due process.
Yeah, so Tim's arguments were, 1, I've been in unions, didn't like them. 2, your perspective is subjective. And 3, humans are fallible. And we just frankly did not find these arguments convincing. We go over it more in depth in the first video, but he says that Ben's perspective is subjective, but he did not base his argument entirely on his experience. Ben didn't. Ben Burgess based it on material realities, the leverage that workers get when they unionize, the language that are in their contracts, where Pool's argument is entirely subjective. It is entirely based on his experience.
Right. You can actually point to the law and the responsibility of a labor union to represent its members, and how the failure to do so can result in a DFR charge. That's real. That's not a subjective statement. That's factual.
Exactly. And it's not subjective. And so just like last time, we aren't going to say, also, speaking to his point that humans are fallible, and so sometimes you're not going to get a perfect execution of what Ben is talking about every single time.
That's true.
Just like last time, we are not here to argue that every single union, every single time, behaves perfectly. But the fact remains that union workers are less likely to be disciplined or fired for nonsense reasons. And it's really as simple as that, as far as the free speech argument goes. It is really as simple as that. So there's the recap in about 5 minutes. Let's go through some of the comments on the video. The first one from JST Doit 99 says, "Have you ever been in a union? I have most of my life. I'm very sad that young people are so stupid." Now, several of the people that saw that video and not our other work, several people saw that video and not our other work. And so, that's fine. You're not going to know our background. But we did mention Adam's union work. If you actually listen to the video, we did mention Adam's work for a teachers union. And so, but yes, both of us have been in and very much are currently in unions. I'm a member of the American Federation of Government Employees. I'm an assistant vice president of my local, and I'm secretary treasurer of the Labor Council, which is the regional federation of unions in the area. I'm also a member of the Industrial Workers of the World. Adam is currently a union stagehand, a member of the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees. He was formerly a member of the Alabama Teachers Union, the Alabama Education Association, and after that, he was a staffer for the AEA. So,
where I was also a member of the National Staff Organization, the union which represents NEA employees and NEA affiliate employees, and where I was also elected to serve as an executive board member, as well as on the bargaining team. When I was a member of AEA, I was also elected to be a delegate at the state and national level, as well as local board of directors. And we could both go on, but yes, we've both very much been in unions. I've spent the last decade of my life in the labor movement.
Yes, and beyond our individual involvement in unions, we are very much in contact with people in unions, and we talk to them all the time.
At least once a week.
At least once a week, but beyond that for both of us. So let's go to the next one. Now that we've put our what's standpoint epistemology, we've done a little bit of that.
We got to flash our credentials.
Flash our credentials. Okay. So the next one comes from Timothy Larson. Free speech is an issue in the workplace and not on Twitter. I'm a union worker. You are not. We are. Very few people are scared to speak out. This is not a problem at all. People speak out all the time with no repercussions. I'm a Democratic union worker, and you two are so far from reality, and it shows. You're trying to speak for people you know nothing about. I have great pay and benefits and a great 401k. Your immaturity on policy and politics is scaring me, and you're speaking for a workforce you know nothing about. I get 2 raises a year because we spoke out and came together with no repercussions.
Well, good for you.
Thank you for making our point.
Right. I mean, good for you for coming together, for speaking out, for getting a raise.
You're exactly the person that we're talking about. You
Right.
don't have a problem because you and your coworkers organized. And we're incredibly glad to hear it. And Timothy Larson, if you want to call into the show and tell us more about it, we would welcome it. But you are not you're not the people that we're speaking about. Most workers do not have unions in their workplace. Most workers are not organized into unions, and so they don't have the protections that you have and that I have and that Adam has. They don't have those protections, and we want everyone to have those protections, and those protections are what make you able to speak out freely without repercussions, and we want to make everybody have that, and Tim doesn't.
Right, and that's your experience. Subjective. That is your subjective experience in your workplace. But I assure you, you talk to workers, many workers across various industries know that what they say, both on the job and outside of work, both online and in real life, can have repercussions.
Right.
On the job site.
Right.
If you don't believe me, go on Facebook and post about your company. Post about your boss.
Well, now, you won't have a problem because you're in a union like we're advocating for, and you've got these just cause protections in your contract, presumably, and so you're not going to have that repercussion. But anybody else...
Even in unionized industries, it's still a concern.
Right.
It's still a factor that you have to factor in, and retaliation can still happen. I mean, teachers, for example... Teachers have to be extremely careful about what they say outside of work, what they post on social media, both in terms of their politics, their personal beliefs, their religious beliefs, their personal activities. So if you are a rank-and-file teacher, even with a union, you still have to tread carefully because your picture on Facebook of you enjoying an adult beverage could be misconstrued as you being immoral.
Right.
Or, your Facebook or Twitter post about Black Lives Matter could absolutely result in you being called into the principal's office. Now, hopefully, you have a union rep and you can say, hey, I want my rep here if we're going to have this meeting. And then you can go from there. But come on now. Timothy, good on you and your coworkers for organizing and fighting the good fight and getting that pay raise. But solidarity is about understanding everyone else and understanding that while we're all sharing certain struggles, we face our own unique struggles as well, and it's important that we have each other's backs.
Yep. Hambone says you want freedom of speech at work? Start your own business. Freedom of speech protects you from the government. And Hambone, you're thinking of the First Amendment. That protects you from the government, but freedom of speech is a broader value that we can have more or less of in political and, yes, economic arenas like the workplace, where we spend most of our waking lives. And no, I don't think free speech should be reserved for the boss.
Yeah, what a great solution. Literally everyone who wants freedom of speech should just have to start their own business.
Yeah.
Think it through.
Francisco Martinez says unions can crush a member's free speech too. And to that we say, yes, but unlike your employer, that's illegal. It is not illegal for your employer to crush your free speech, but it is illegal for your union to crush your free speech. Unlike your employer, you have recourse if your union illegitimately stifles your speech. First, through internal processes with your coworkers that you can get addressed, and then, if you can't resolve it, you can actually make a complaint with the Department of Labor because there is a union member's Bill of Rights that has been codified into law that gives you free speech within your union and the right to speak freely at union meetings, about your union, at work and outside of work.
Right. And we've talked a lot on this show about how unions, some are more democratic than others. But at the end of the day, you can show up to a meeting and conceivably, especially if you know little Robert's rules, get on the agenda. You can take the floor. You can take the mic. You can say your piece. You might get booed. You might get cheered. You might get a second. You might not. I mean, that's the messiness of democracy. And to the extent that your union is not democratic, well, there's something to work on, for one thing.
Right.
But as you laid out, there are actual there's a process in place in every union for dealing with this. And when that does not work, you actually can go legal with it. So,
Yep.
Sorry. Yes, I suppose, I mean, Francisco, it's a possible thing, but it's not comparable.
It is not a response to our argument. Ubiquitous says, the at-will model for small businesses came about precisely because unions overextended. If you're talking about a business under 25 people, then the community becomes rather tight-knit. If someone is pulling their weight, then it is counterproductive for a boss to fire their employees.
Because bosses are only going to do things that are productive. They would never act irrationally.
We've got somebody who has the workplace understander has logged on. If an unresolvable conflict comes up, then it is a case where the 1 versus 24 would lose with or without a union. Thus, that employee can leave before things get out of hand. The departure should give reason on management to consider the costs. Employees have business knowledge and loss thereof cost the business the means of production. The small business nature provides a union by virtue of tight-knit community.
Oh, my God.
It is when business gets large enough for management to lose the call to senses where there is a practical call for a union. At-will
Brother, get the boot out of your mouth.
Come on, man. This is the workplace understander has logged on. At-will has been the standard, just for the record, before, during, and after unions. At-will was the standard. And no, that is not an accurate description of working for a small business.
God, no. I mean, maybe it was...
Small business tyrant is a word for a reason.
I mean, hey, maybe that's been your experience in a small family business. And if so, good for you. But that is certainly not the case for many other folks. And please, I think it doesn't take much to understand that bosses do not always act rationally. They don't even always act in the best interest of their profit margins, either certainly not in the long term, but even in the short term.
Look at Warrior Met. Let's go to Mushroom LW. Mushroom LW says, strongly disagree. Let's just say there's a bolt tightening union and a screw tightening union. I'm in the bolt tightening union. If I know how to use a screwdriver, can I grab a screwdriver and tighten a screw that needs to be tightened and I know how to do it? My experience tells me no. You will be punished for doing the wrong union job. On a free market model, you can develop multiple skills and become valuable to an employer and gain raises faster than a union model. I think they meant union model. But that being said, in a free market, you should be allowed to unionize. I just believe at a single company, I should not be stripped of my freedom to not join a union to get that same job. I should be free to choose which model I prefer. Now, here, we're moving a bit away from free speech and into other aspects of unions. But on this, there are two things to say. Unions do have job classifications, and that is good. It is good for people to do their job and not give labor to the company for free. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to have job descriptions and to not give the money free labor. Okay? That's a good thing. And the workers are the ones that put those job classifications in there. So if you want to have a more wandering type of job classification, guess what you can do? You can put that in your job description. Also, you should not be free to get the union benefits without paying union dues. That is being a freeloader. If you now, you are obviously free to work in a non-union workplace. You can go work at the Hyundai facility in Alabama where they use child labor and have amputation hazards. If you want, there's no union there. Go work there. If you don't like unions, go work there instead of working in a union workplace, getting union wages, union health care, union benefits, union job protections, and not paying union dues. You freeloader. Go work somewhere else. Go work somewhere else.
Right.
And also, one more thing on that, trade unions train in much more of a tradesman type fashion than non-union construction companies. If you come up in a trade union apprenticeship, like the iron workers, the electrical workers, pipe fitters, steam fitters, all of these all of these unions, these trade unions, they are going to give you real quality collegiate level training and education about how to do your craft in a much more comprehensive way than you're going to get on the job site in a non-union construction company. Because they just want you to learn the one task to do, and then they will pay you less. And they'll pay you less.
And I do have some sense of kind of what they're hitting at. Like something I experience on the job with IATSE Local 900. We have different positions. If I'm there as a stagehand and not a loader, my job is to be a stagehand, not to load and unload the truck. That means I don't get on the truck. That's a different job. That's a different pay scale. That's different people on the schedule. That's a different crew. I mean, and those things are there for reasons.
Right.
Reasons being different job descriptions, different pay rates, and safety.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's something to consider, that because I've heard that complaint before. I've even heard that complaint, on the job there from folks who are like, oh, yeah, these union rules, sometimes kind of get in the way, huh? Well, not really.
Right.
On the balance, I'd much prefer it be that way than the chaotic, loosey-goosey, non-union work environment where folks are jumping in between departments. Folks are doing work that they're not trained to do. Folks are doing work that they're not really being compensated to do. So, personally, I'll take that any day of the week, even if it means, hey, I have to stand here and wait for the appropriate personnel to do this job. That means I have to stand by for 3 minutes and wait for them to show up or whatever. Hey, good. That's good. I'll take it.
Yep, exactly. Let's hit a couple of funny ones before we get to David Griscom. I think we've got him in the Zoom, so we're going to run through these pretty fast. Jason Larson says, I regret clicking on the end increasing its view count. As a white cis male, I am sorry. Not for being white and straight, though.
No one's asking you to be sorry for being white or straight, but thanks for clicking on the video anyway.
Thank you for your contribution. Moist Potato says, just about anybody can make a podcast these days, huh? This actually made me lose brain cells. Buddy, I got news for you. We're on the damn radio, okay? We're on 3 FM radio stations, so get your facts straight. And they don't just let anybody get on the radio.
That's true. But, yeah, anyone can start a podcast. I mean, clearly, if you're a Tim Pool fan.
Fizz Graffiti says, maybe I'm not woke enough, but how is anyone supposed to get past these visuals and pay attention to the points these two are trying to make? Skinny tie, short sleeve polka dot shirt, and aviator glasses, WTF, big-ass red headphones, so many distractions. Not everyone is meant to be on camera, and that's all right. That's why God invented the radio. Does everyone have to be a video star? For crying out loud, think about your audience. Why make them suffer the cringe? And I appreciate your contribution, Fizz Graffiti. It's a bizarre contribution. That tie that I was wearing that day, and I wore this one just for you. The flower tie that I've got on, I wore it just for you. But the tie that I had on that day was actually a great uncle's tie. Like, that is literally a tie from the 60s. Like, that was actually an old man tie. And so very much not a hip woke fashion statement.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but these folks need to stop saying the word woke.
Yes.
I don't... it just grates on me at this point to where they have so overused it. It's so played out. I just don't understand it. How's wokeness related to...
What I'm wearing?
What you wore that day?
Wearing a button-down shirt and a tie is woke now? Is it?
How do you dress unwoke? Mr. Graffiti, please comment. Let us know. How do we dress unwoke? I'd like to know.
Yeah,
I'm not going to follow your advice, but I would be curious to know what it is.
Yeah, that was bananas.
And I'm just going to say this. I know we've got some folks listening who tend to be our very loyal listeners, and
but we're gonna get some other folks listening to this when we drop it in as a clip.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. Like, y'all we really do appreciate y'all. The folks who tune in, the folks who participate, who give us good feedback, who give us good critiques. We really do appreciate that, and I love the little community that's kind of around this show. Yep. And it's definitely interesting how a video that name drops someone like Tim Pool will get 10 times the number of views and engagement versus stuff that we're doing that's like, in my opinion, pretty legit journalism.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, like legitimate discussion of legitimate issues that impact people's lives.
Yeah, and relaying legitimate journalism.
Right.
I don't know that,
interviewing really important people. People who are organizing, people who are writing important work, people who have been on strike, people who are engaged in struggles in our society. So yeah, I mean that's I guess the frustrating thing about this whole like game of media in the internet age. Gaming the algorithm, trying to get clicks and engagement and all that. So all that to say, those of you who listen on a regular basis, certainly those who contribute, however you contribute, whether you just share our stuff or you donate every month or however you're doing it, it really does mean a lot, and we appreciate it because we're not able to use billionaire money to finance this show. We're not making any money off this show. We're lucky if we break even every month.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason we're able to is because of folks like y'all who contribute and some of the organizations who do sponsor the show. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But yeah,
we definitely appreciate
Tim Pool,
that.
You can get fucked.
Yeah.
There you go.
Champagne Humanist says that we both look ready to go downtown, but to different clubs.
I tend to stick with like the union T-shirt or the organization T-shirt, rep a different group every weekend or whatever. Mm-hmm. You go for the more professional news anchor kind of look. But yeah, you do mix it up sometimes.
I mix it up sometimes. It just depends on if I have enough time to like take a shower in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
So every time you see me in a T-shirt and a hat, just know that I am disgusting.
We're in separate parts of the building.
Right. So he doesn't have to
can't smell it.
Yeah. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.